All right, great. So we're going to begin our brainstorming session with a little bit of brainstorming for solopreneurs. So what I did when I was creating the training for this particular session was I've been in a lot of group brainstorming events. In fact, I used to go to the Creative Problem Solving Institute's annual conference, SIPSI. And it was like 5 days of creative fun with facilitators, academics, coaches, all types of creatives, and it was awesome. And so I've been a huge fan of the Osborne Parnes creative problem solving process, as well as appreciative inquiry, and a lot of other different approaches to cognitive psychology and just creativity in general. So I kind of isolated it into a process that I use myself when I try to brainstorm something. And I thought exclusively, let's keep this focused on an individual doing the brainstorming. So I have a 10-step process that I'm going to walk you through, and then you will get the worksheet that is actually part of the workshop inside Pappy Club, and we'll get to have some fun with that. So I'd love to hear after the session's over how you guys did, what kind of cool things you came up with as you brainstormed on your own. So let's go ahead and get this started. So the first thing, similar to the breakthrough training I gave you guys, is the first step in brainstorming is capture the essence of what you really want. It's about clarifying and identifying what it is you're really trying to reach toward that brainstorming will serve. And what that does is that helps you kind of, take it from a general place like, oh, I'd like to have more money, or, oh, I'd like to have my business be easier, or, oh, I'd like to have more speaking gigs, or, oh, I want more clients, right? Those are really big generalized things. So when you capture the essence of what you want in that first step, it's going to make brainstorming so much more powerful for you, because you won't be limited by or lost is probably a better way to describe it, by the hugeness of what you're trying to brainstorm around, okay? So that's the first one, is to capture that essence of what you truly want and try to refine it down as much as you can. So for example, if you want more clients, why do you want more clients? Ask yourself the why question so you can understand more clearly what it is you're really trying to reach for. Because when you identify the real essence of what you're trying to reach for, then brainstorming has a purity around it, because you're connected to that real outcome, not necessarily something on the periphery that you think will be in order to achieve that outcome, if you know what I mean. So if you play around with it, it's actually a pretty cool little nuance to getting started with this process. Okay, the second step is, before you get brainstorming, I know you're like, I want to just brainstorm, right? Well, the second step is explore why you want this result. Why do you want to achieve it? Why are you reaching for this? What is going on in your life that is making this more noticeable, making that pebble in your shoe bigger so it's harder to walk, if you know what I mean? And just kind of do some writing around that or thinking around that. So, well, why is that I want? So that's kind of like refines even further, clarifying the essence of what you want. So those first two steps are super, super important. And this is also can be applied to approaching any project that you're working on with a client, or if you're having a meeting with a vendor or a potential association that you want to do work for, or a company. You can use this process to help them ferret out what it is they're really trying to accomplish. And it can actually be a kind of a good sales tool as well. Now, the third step is kind of like the synthesis of this, right? And this is clarify exactly what it is you want to achieve in as specific detail as possible. So it's kind of like creating SMART goals, right? So what's cool about these first three steps is it helps you get super clear about everything, and it pares it down to its essence and allows you to really get close to what it is regarding the result that you want. And so all of the peripheral stuff kind of gets pushed away, so you have something really pure to actually move forward with. So those first three steps are really super important. All right, step 4, round 1 of brainstorming. So there's going to be 3 rounds of brainstorming. Now, the brainstorming I'm specifically talking about is divergent brainstorming. So in the Osborne-Parnes creative problem solving, the 6-step process, there's divergent brainstorming as a step, and then convergent brainstorming is a step. Now, what I mean by that is divergent mean just as many as you can, wide out there, like spray and pray kind of approach, throw those noodles on the wall and just have fun. So that's divergent brainstorming. You don't want to get in judgment mode. You don't want to be thinking about it or figuring out how to, do it. It's like, oh, that's a great idea, but I have no clue how to do it. And then you get wrapped up in that, right? And then convergent is where you take those ideas and you start paring them down into ideas that are a lot closer, ideas that get you excited. And I'll cover that in later steps. So the first round of your brainstorming is literally that. It's just kind of throw out there whatever ideas. So now that you've done that kind of paring down, you know what you're focused on, then you can sit and write and just go and just put Post-its on the wall, whatever turns you on as far as the method of how you're going to do your brainstorming. It should be something you enjoy, as opposed, this should not be work, right? This is allowing you to be silly, have fun, be goofy, just fulfill a dream that you've always had, and really just enjoy the process of just throwing all that stuff out there. So that's round 1. Now, you don't want to spend too much time on that. Like, you don't want to try to exhaust yourself going through that first round, because we're going to have 2 more rounds, okay? Now, what I want you to do in step 5 is to review that initial round. So like, once you get to a point where you kind of feel, whew, okay, that's a lot of stuff, I need to rest. It'll kind of hit you like that. It'll be like, all right, I'm going to sit down, maybe have an ice cream or a glass of wine or something, and just kind of chill out for a little bit. And step number 5, I want you to review your brainstorming. And now this is really super, super key. Make a list of the beliefs, the stories, the thoughts that you have about it, the, any editorial commentary that you have about those ideas that you first came up with, because believe me, they will be there. And it'll sound like your mom. Okay, so this is a really crucial step, and I'll tell you why. We all grow up with all kinds of conditioning, right? We have influences from parents, from culture, from peers, siblings, friends, you name it. Things we read, things we learn in school, we become indoctrinated in belief systems. And we also adopt stories about who we are, what we say we're good at, what we say we're not good at, what our preferences are. And what ends up happening is we get very kind of closed in with our thinking, and our openness to what is really available to us regarding new ideas, new possibilities, becomes hindered by all of those conditions. So step 5 is super important for you to kind of step back, look at that brainstorming, and listen for all of the editorial comments and the judgments and the stories around that. And make notes of those, okay? Because when you bring them into your awareness and acknowledge them for what they are, then you're opening back up to more possibilities. So they're like, okay, that's an interesting thought, that I'm judging, that I'm not good at this particular thing, and you can't move forward, right? So this is all about creating possibility and opening, just the flow of ideas. And it's hard to do that when all of our, oh, I can't do that, I'm not good at that, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at this, or, I'm shy in front of people, or whatever that is. That's what it'll sound like. All right, number 6 is round 2. So once you've done that exploration of the story and editorial, notice, set it to the side, and then go at brainstorming again. So you're going to go do the same thing. Take that original essence of an idea that you pared down in the first 3 steps, and then just kind of like go crazy again. Because once you see, and this is the most amazing thing, when I discovered this process, I was like, holy mackerel, this is really interesting how we unconsciously squelch ideas because of our conditioning. And so once we look and see that that has happened, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I see that I'm stopping myself from doing this because I heard that little voice saying, oh, you're not good at that, right? Because remember, you don't have to do all this yourself. Whatever the how-to path is, you can get somebody to help you, right? So go through another round of brainstorming. And as you do this one, now here's an important thing. I want you to know that you don't have to do this all in one sitting. In fact, it can be more beneficial if you spread it out over a day or a couple of days or even a couple of weeks. I mean, if the thing that you're really wanting to drill down to has a deep emotional connection to you, if it really is super important to you, it might be worthwhile for you to kind of allow it some air, allow it time to ferment. So all of those ideas, as you're kind of breaking away all the conditioned thoughts, all the unclear, generalities of it, they'll come in because everything's there. It's all there. It's just waiting for us to open up to receive it. Okay. So remember that when you're brainstorming, you can be as impractical as possible. Like, I want aliens to come down and land on my house and transform my house into a mansion on the beach, right? Yeah, I know that's how Kevin normally thinks. Well, that's an extreme example, obviously, but I want you to be silly and just kind of like that's the beauty of divergence, is to really kind of put it way out there because it stretches your brain, stretches your thinking a little bit. Now, after you do that second round, I want you to do a third and final round, okay? So kind of, take a break between those two rounds, acknowledge, like, did I notice where the conditioning was more relaxed, where the editorial was more relaxed, where I got newer ideas than the first round of brainstorming? And another thing that I want you to pay particular attention to in round 2 and 3 is, where are the ideas that have the most emotion? Like, which ones really like, oh my God, that'd be so cool if that happened, right? The ones that like, wow, I could actually see this really working. I never thought of it that way. So if there's an emotion associated with an idea or two or many that you have, circle those, pay particular attention to those, because in round 6, where you're doing that, on number 6, where you're doing the second round of brainstorming, that's the most important thing that I want you to do, is pay attention to the emotions. Because now that you've removed the conditioning a little bit, you're going to get much more closer and in tune with what's really right for you. So in the third round of brainstorming is where I want you to use templates that are included in this. So for those of you who have a story about, I can't draw, I can't write, whatever those stories are, just say, thank you for sharing, set them over there, and just go for it. I used to do this course called, I wrote a book called Compass Playbook, and it was all based on creative problem solving. And I did workshops, and I can't tell you how many people came in to the program and said, oh, I can't draw. I can't do that. That's just, and it's amazing because I give them permission to draw like a 5-year-old. So stick figures, lines, smiley faces, that kind of thing are encouraged because your brain understands what you're trying to draw, right? So notice those inhibitors that happen when you take on brainstorming using a creative template. So we have mind maps, list making, story, drawing, visualization, and storyboarding. And storyboarding is like a progression. So in the worksheet is a guide to how to do each one of these creative templates. So you don't have to worry about that. And have fun with it. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's creative and it's brainstorming. So that's what I want you to use for round 3, which is step number 7, is to use creative templates. And this is why it's kind of fun to do this over a couple of days or a week or so, because it allows you to kind of come back at it. And I'm telling you, you will have new ideas. We think, oh no, I thought of everything. I brainstormed everything. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do that anymore. Well, if that's how you feel about it, then pay particular attention to that. Like, how does that stop you in life? How does that stop you in business? Like when you decide, I'm done, you'll know it. You'll feel that you've expressed all of those ideas. Okay, so number 8, you're gonna love this one, rest. Yes, rest is a step. Because you've done a lot, right? The first 3 were all about clarifying. Then we went through some brainstorming rounds. We did some self-examination regarding what we think about, the stories that limit us, the thoughts, the conditioning, all of those things that keep us, kind of stuck. And just like allow that to kind of wash over you. And if you give it some time, you will be amazed at all of a sudden, you'll start to get these little inspired thoughts. Now, one of the most important things that I also want you to remember as you go through this process is do not try to solution as you're doing brainstorming. This is a natural thing for us to want to do, is to figure out, well, how am I going to do that? Oh my God, that's a great idea. Okay, so I got to call this person. I got to get signed up for this subscription. I got to read this book. I got to call Alan Zimmerman and ask him how to do it. And, all of these things, right? That's normal, right? We're business owners and we're all about, focusing on the action plan, the strategy, which is part of this, believe it or not. But it can actually stop you from being present to possibility and allowing that divergence to continue to happen, because you will get ideas on a continuous basis. So just, after you just kind of let it settle, just relax, congratulate yourself that you did a good job. Now, the 9th step is go back and review all your notes. This is when you look at everything from a kind of like you're coming in to review someone else's work in a way, where you come back and look at it objectively. And this is, again, where I want you to go and find the things of all 3 brainstorming exercises that you did, where you wrote things down or thought of things or made notes that really resonate with you. So I want you to focus on that bell ringer, and the bell ringer's got to be on a positive emotion. So if it's something that's a negative emotion, so if you see an idea that you wrote down, like, oh, I just need to make 10 more sales calls a day, and you hate sales. So that's something that you can explore separately. Like, what is it about sales that I hate, and how can I brainstorm ways to do it creatively, right? So there's a perfect example of something you could do that's a point of realization about yourself that you can actually work with instead of allow to stop you. So the 10th step of those best ideas, of all those best ideas, the ones that have the most pull, the most energy, the most like, oh, I'm super excited about these. I can't wait to get my hands around these and start working on them. I want you to take those, and it could be one. I mean, there could be one out of all that effort that you put together that just like you're totally fished in. You're like, I could start yesterday. I want to put everything else aside and work on this because I'm so jazzed about it. That one thing or those couple of things, that's where you take those in the final step and you start loosely putting together an action plan. And the action plan, again, can bring in some more brainstorming. Remember how I said about, so that last step, those last couple steps are where we get the convergence and we bring down to those and isolate those ideas that we feel most strongly about. So that is the 10-step process. And just so you know that those are all flexible, like those are all flexible steps. And when I first was kind of developing the solopreneur brainstorming process, I looked at a lot of research around how group brainstorming provides so much value. But studies have found that individual brainstorming actually provides higher quality results. And the reason for that is because when you have that group think, people are bringing in all their conditioning, all their stories, all their experience, all their preferences, and kind of laying it on your idea. And what that does is that causes a lot of noise, and it keeps you more distant from what you really know in your heart is the right way to go. You just haven't uncovered it yet. So the mental process ends up being a little disrupted and distracted by that, and it can water down an actual idea that could really be empowering. And they've done studies that have shown that this result, when you brainstorm on your own, you'll get a higher quality result because you don't have all that noise. Now, does that mean you should never brainstorm in a group? Heck no. If you want to take this process and bring it into a mastermind that you have, or with a couple of friends that you trust, or colleagues, this could be a really fun experience for everybody to do. And as long as you're, staying away from judgment, staying away from the how-to, and noticing where the conditioning comes in and how you feel, those are the most important things around brainstorming. It's not just the act of trying to come up with ideas. It's the experience of allowing the ideas that are already inside you just to unfold and be visible and, realized by you. So that is the solopreneur process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to conclude the training portion, and I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and let's do a little brainstorming if it's okay with you guys. Sound good? Yes? Awesome. All right.